I never thought of it that I will want a kid from a girl and she will reject me. Okay, that has to be, it's karma.
Sure, Sarper, perhaps you could call it karma. Or maybe you could call it wanting to have kids with a woman who doesn't want more kids. Whatever the case, Sarper has decided that his best course of action is to try and punish Shekinah for not changing her mind.
We can live together, no problem, till we bored each other and then you go back to your country.
Now, before we dive into Sarper's manipulation and his threats, let's just rewind to the start of this episode. So, the last we saw these two, Sarper completely blindsided Shekinah by telling her that he wanted to have a baby with her. And when we join them in this episode, Sarper's decided to involve his parents in this mess. Now, Sarper's parents met Shekinah last night for the very first time. And when we join him this morning, Sarper is meeting up with them alone for breakfast. And the first thing he wants to discuss with them is their thoughts on Shekinah.
Vallahi ben çok beğendim. Yani böyle ben de Amerikalılar daha böyle soğuk olur gibi falan gelmişti bana ama hiç değil.
Shekinah çok tatlı bir insan.
Yok, evet.
Çok uyumlu.
Evet.
So putting aside the vast generalization about all Americans' personalities, Sarper's parents seem to like Shekinah. Sarper should be thanking his lucky stars. I mean, he's in a good place in his relationship, and her meeting with his family didn't descend into the chaos that his meeting descended to when he met Shekinah's sister. No insults were exchanged, which means there's progress. But there is one problem. Sarper has decided that he wants an heir. At the age of 43, after having slept with thousands of women, he's decided now he wants a child. Well, another child. A child he'll actually see. And his parents seem supportive about this.
Ya benim derdim biliyorsunuz çocuk olayı yani.
Evet, biliyorum.
Yani sonuçta hani var bir tane biliyorsunuz.
Evet.
Now, judging by the way that Sarper talks about the child that he already has versus the baby that he wants, it honestly just sounds like he wants a baby to carry his surname. Like, his reasoning doesn't seem to have much to do with being a father, being a good person, raising a child. It seems more about continuing his bloodline. But regardless of his intentions, there's an obstacle in his way. Shekinah.
Çocuk istemiyor değil mi?
İstemiyor. Ve çok net. Yani
Evet, öyle mi ya kesin?
Call me crazy, but everyone seems to be acting far too shocked that Sarper's girlfriend doesn't want kids. I mean, only a minute ago, Sarper, the 43-year-old perpetual bachelor, the former exotic dancer, was boasting about his body count and sharing the story of how he chose to delete an email knowing it would cut him out of his child's life. So I'm not exactly sure why his parents seem attached to the idea of Sarper having more kids, but it becomes clear that they do want a mini Sarper, regardless of what Shekinah wants.
Hamilelik kolay bir şey değil kadın için. Yani,
Mesleği o zaten.
Doğru.
Güzel.
Evet. Şimdiki şu sevdiğin erkek çok istiyorsa çocuk o zaman biraz fedakarlık.
If that's the thinking that's going to be passed down to his child, I don't really blame Shekinah for choosing not to procreate with this man. The idea that a woman should sacrifice what she wants, put her needs secondary to her husband's and give him a child that she's the one who's going to have to raise, seems very flawed thinking. I think we can all see that Shekinah has enough on her hands already looking after the one man baby she's already in a relationship with. But for all of Shekinah's patience, for all of her understanding, it's Sarper who's questioning their future together, and it's pretty rich.
teklif yapmayı düşünüyorum.
Evet, evlilik teklifi.
Evet, direkt düşünüyordum bunu. Yani bu son olaya kadar, hani bu konuşmaya kadar.
Look, Sarper, if one tough conversation is all it takes to decide that you don't want to be with Shekinah anymore, well, you might want to take a look in the mirror, pal. Shekinah should have dumped you from her very first day in Turkey by those standards. Like, quite honestly, you're lucky that anyone wants to even be with you, to put up with your crap, let alone demanding that they have your child. Now, unfortunately for Shekinah, she thinks that the child conversation is well and truly done. She's made her position clear, and she seems to think that Sarper understands it. But she has no idea that Sarper is reconsidering everything.
Ever since then, he hasn't brought it up again, and today he's planned a romantic date for us. So I'm hoping that he's dropped the kids issue for good.
So when we next join Sarper later that day, having just admitted that he's considering his entire future with Shekinah, he's taking her on a very special date to the Turkish baths. He seems to be doing an excellent job at playing happy families, at pretending everything's okay. He's making her laugh, he's wooing her, and you've got to wonder whether this is just a tactic to get her to change her mind, to agree to having his kid.
This beautiful place and really thoughtful plans that Sarper has made reminds me of why I came here in the first place.
Yeah, the setting might be beautiful, but this little love bubble that they're trying to pretend they have is about to burst. You see, Sarper starts by telling Shekinah about his breakfast meeting with his parents. He tells her that they liked her, but then he brings up the whole kids topic again, just as Shekinah thought it was all over.
My mother said directly that she wants a grandchild.
She said that?
Yeah.
What Sarper's doing here is very unfair. This decision to have kids shouldn't be about his mum. It's a decision between him and Shekinah. Sure, it's great that your mum would like to have a grandchild, but how are you conveniently forgetting that she already has one? It's you that chose not to be in that child's life. And yeah, the way he's acted with his first child doesn't exactly inspire confidence as to the dad he'll be for future children. So given that their picture-perfect date is now on the brink of collapse and this whole topic has been brought up, Shekinah asks the question that's on everyone's mind.
Do you feel like you really want that because your parents really want that and they're pressuring you?
No, babe. That's the purpose of life, isn't it? I mean, you have a daughter, you know.
You have a daughter, you know, he says. Like, the way that Sarper keeps bringing up the fact that Shekinah already has a child kind of almost makes it feel like he's using that against her. He's trying to make her feel guilty for having something that he doesn't. Only he does. If the purpose of life is having kids, you've fulfilled that. You have a kid, Sarper. Now, the truth is, we already know that whenever these two argue, Sarper always acts like a dick. He always tries to steamroller his opinion onto everyone else. But for a topic as serious as this, as serious as life, well, Shekinah is determined not to repeat past mistakes.
Sophie's dad's always off working. He would leave me with the majority of the responsibility of raising her. It was like so incredibly hard.
Is it just me, or does Shekinah sound a bit resentful of her daughter here? That's a really strange thing for her to say. Like she really didn't enjoy that responsibility of having to raise her daughter. It makes the fact that she's placed her daughter in boarding school while she's here in Turkey in this crazy relationship even more questionable. But regardless of what Shekinah says, Sarper takes no notice. You can practically see the words go in one ear and out the other. Nothing she says will be enough to make him see her perspective. And Sarper right now is on the offensive. He's back to making his typical empty promises.
Even we get aparted, I never leave my child.
He said the same things to me. I'm sorry to say that, but he said the same things.
Oh, what, like the last child you had, Sarper? Sorry, mate, but your track record says otherwise. It's hard to take him seriously at this point. And perhaps that's why, sensing that Shekinah isn't falling for his lines, Sarper now begins to overpower her. He starts to speak over her, speak down to her. And frankly, that's just not the way you speak to someone you supposedly love. A relationship should be a partnership, not a dictatorship. Sarper has clearly missed that memo, and if Shekinah doesn't want his child, well then Sarper makes it pretty clear this relationship isn't going anywhere. He's just gonna return back to his old ways.
We can live together, no problem, till we board each other, and then you go back to your country.
Yeah, don't tempt fate, Sarper, because the more you talk right now, the more I'm convinced Shekinah is getting closer and closer to buying a one-way ticket back home. Who knows, maybe that's in fact his intention. But regardless, Sarper keeps going back to the fact that Shekinah already has a daughter. Only this time, he makes it crystal clear that he doesn't care about anyone but himself. He's the only one that matters.
You have already a kid. Of course you don't want it.
Please don't discredit my experience. It
Baby,
literally is the reason
I
I'm
don't
making
care
this
what
decision.
you experienced
Well,
before.
you should care.
I just want.
Will someone please just shove a pacifier in his mouth before this man-child has another tantrum? I'm sick of listening to him, and I imagine Shekinah feels the same. He's really pushing her to the edge. After all the insults, after calling her a slut, calling her a bitch in front of her sister, after the shady behaviour on his social media, weighing her every morning, finally Shekinah's had enough. She's finally speaking up, and she's telling him exactly what she thinks of him right now.
You
I
don't
just
care about
want in the
anything,
future.
you just
Not
want
now,
what you want.
not one.
You sound like a little spoiled brat right now.
Yeah, spoiled brat, that's one way to say it. I think many of us would have chosen some slightly different, more colourful language, but yeah, spoiled brat, let's go with that. What's pretty clear here is that Sarper is just out-Sarpering himself at this point. He uses this opportunity, this heated argument over having children, to casually drop in how many women he's slept with for like the millionth time.
Please
It's
not.
karma of 2,500. I know that.
I asked you to please stop talking about your disgusting numbers in front of me.
Okay. My numbers.
Sarper, why is your body count in any way relevant to this conversation? The way he said that, my numbers, is as if someone just asked him to give up years of hard work, to relinquish all of his achievements or something. It's comical, especially when things begin to escalate even further. Hearing him talk about the other women he's slept with seems to trigger Shekinah, and it's at this point she calls him an arse. But Sarper tries to use this as an opportunity to test her devotion to him. It's pretty twisted logic that he has here.
Becoming
the
an
truth.
ass right now, and I don't appreciate
All
it.
truth. Do you love me when I am a
No, I don't like when you're like this.
Sarper has this really weird obsession with being a bad boy, doesn't he? Like, he refers to himself as a retired bad boy. Every single one of his social media posts is him giving guidance and advice to other men on how to be a so-called bad boy. He's convinced that this is some kind of tactic that will get him women that women seem to like. And it's a really tragic throwback to all of those cringy pickup artists that seemed to be all the rage about 10 years ago. His whole line of questioning, do you love me when I'm an arse? Like, what does he expect her to say? Yes, Sarper, I love you more. I want your kids now. Like, he's such an idiot. And Shekinah is so over this. She's walking out of the door. And my only issue here is she should have done this a lot sooner.
This is a up conversation, and I'm unsubscribing.
Thank you so much
Yeah, you're so
Thank you
welcome.
so much.
You're so welcome.
for today. Huh?
Don't talk to me for the rest of the day.
The rest of the day. Sorry, Shekinah, but I don't think this is going to blow over in a matter of hours. Shekinah's threshold for putting up with this stuff is way too high. What's it going to take for her to realise that she needs to leave? She needs to go home. She needs to end this tragic relationship. Sadly, something tells me it's gonna have to be Sarper who's the one that pulls the plug for her. She seems determined not to go home, but I really hope that doesn't extend to her agreeing to have his kids.